One of my friends just gave me my dream camera to test out. Shout out Wilson Camera. I've always wanted to shoot on a wide lux, especially the f8. Especially the f7, since it's a 35mm, you get 22 shots, and I think it spans around 3 images of 35 stitched together. I've always wanted to shoot on the wide lux. I've seen so many creative people use it for music videos, architecture. Recently started testing out this camera, and there's a lot of things I've learned about shooting on the wide lux. So this is my experience on shooting on a wide lux f7. The first thing I noticed when you start shooting an object from close with the wide lux is that the viewfinder and the lens don't match up. It's a little bit too tall and the composition is a little off. So when I was shooting a bunch of stuff in Vegas, a lot of the stuff was a little too high or too low, and it's a lot wider than the viewfinder makes it seem. So if you don't hold it properly, your hand can get in the image and in the frame. So I had to start holding the camera a little back like this and just using the neck strap that I have on the camera. So I asked my friend Peter, and I was like, how do you shoot with this thing? He's like, I don't use a viewfinder at all. I just use my eyes. So it's an interesting way to shoot where you're switching from normally using a viewfinder for a film camera and just using your eyes to imagine the frame. Loading the camera is quite interesting because it's like a zigzag, kind of like a maze where you've got to go through different types of intricate cylinders to load into it, and then has to hook. I mean, it's hard to mess up for it to hook. Like, you'll know it hooked because you have to turn it to a certain point and then you know it's locked in. The back's a little flimsy where you gotta lock it securely and like push that thing in, because there's times where I've been shooting and I'm like, oh, is it locked? Is it not locked? And then I've had light leaks on there too. So a lot of trial and error, but I do love the camera. It's such a unique perspective to get a 180 degrees panorama where everything is sharp. I will say that the aperture dial is kind of flimsy. I'm sure you can tighten it. It just moves around if you hit it in the wrong way. You can go from aperture f6 to like 2.8 like really easily. There's only 3 shutters with this camera, so it's 15th of a second, 125th, and 250th of a second. So you really got to think about when you're shooting and what film stock you're using, because you only have such a limited amount of play. So if I'm shooting midday, I'm using low stock and I'm trying to burn that before the night. And if you're at night, you probably would want to use tripod, because I've used a 15 in a second. It turns so slow that there's times where like the images are warped because it's stitching a bunch of images together. It's well built. I mean, it's expensive. It's not a cheap camera. It's very, very well built. It's pretty heavy. It's metal. No grip handle. So you definitely have to play around with how you want to hold it. I think that it's mandatory to get a strap for that camera, or else you're gonna drop it, since your hands can be in the frame. It's definitely a skill to use, and one that I still haven't mastered. But with Skillshare, thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Recently, I've been getting into color grading, and Skillshare has an amazing platform to learn from experts. Just like Tom's course, it has been helping me improve my skills and is backed by an amazing community giving helpful insights. I highly recommend Skillshare if you're looking to become an expert at a topic that interests you. With so many different courses and classes, the sky's the limit. And if you use the link in my description, you get 1 month free trial of Skillshare. Now back to the video. So since I was shooting midday with this camera, I decided to use gold and Cinestill 50D. Tokyo is perfect for midday. There's so many buildings and so many trees that it gives nice depth for foreground, midground, and background. So there's a lot of information to play. But like I said, using this camera is interesting because the foreground could be a lot darker than the sky, but you want to take an average enough where it's not too much of a difference. So today when we were shooting, foreground was like reading 2.8, but the sky is reading like f8, but then the building is reading 5.6. So you want to kind of like play in the middle. I personally do bracket, but with this camera you only get such short amount of shots that bracketing is kind of a waste, because it's technically 6 photos you're bracketing for the same image. The thing you got to be mindful when you're shooting about this camera is when you shoot it where sun's in the way. If you're in front of the sun, usually with other cameras you get nice lens flare. This camera's lens flare is garbage. It's absolutely garbage. I mean, it's like screaming because it turns in towards the direction. So if the sun is on front 3/4, you're getting that front 3/4 of the shot, and then once it skips all that, then the rest of the photo looks really nice. It's beautiful to get a camera that you can shoot and get really almost exactly one-to-one to what you see with your eyes, where the viewer gets the same experience that you're experiencing in real life, but just through a photograph. I would recommend getting this camera. It is a very unique and specific dialed camera, so hopefully my example and my talking points can lead you to on buying or not buying this camera. But this is my experience using the camera in the last couple of weeks, and it's definitely a camera I do have around all the time. Just having a different format for when I'm doing client work or just different stuff, I think is a nice option to have. Hopefully this is a camera for you, and I'm sure you won't regret it. Until next time.